Hello and welcome. It's Lynn Grieveson here from Lynn Grieveson Designs at the Lilypad, and I'm going to quickly show you how I've been using one of my new products, which is the Instant Soft Pop Worn Photos, which are lots of fun. They are PSD and TIFF templates that include worn edges and worn borders for realistic looking photos, for adding depth and realism to your pages. And they also come as layered PNGs, but just a heads up, they don't include the soft pop effect, just the worn photos, edges. So I'm going to quickly show you how I use them. And before I start, just apologies if the sound drops out every now and then. A new system, I'm having a few teething troubles. So I'm going to use this this worn photo template here, which comes in the pack. Each one comes as a bordered version and an unbordered version, and then there's also one which is like a 3-frame negative style framed style. Now I want to use this photo here, and this is the wrong orientation, so I'm just going to go up here. I'm working with a copy as well, always a good idea. So I'm going to go image, image rotation, and I'm going to flip it 90 degrees clockwise. There you go. And that's exactly what I want. Now with my move tool active, if I click on that layer, it will automatically become the active layer in my layers palette. Another thing to do is you can actually just click on it in the layers palette. But the main thing is just make sure that that clipping mask is the layer that is active. And then simply drag on your photo and use either Option or Alt depending on what your keyboard calls it, and hover between these two layers, holding down the Option or Alt key till you get this little symbol. Click, and your photo takes the shape. There you go. Now you may have missed it, so we'll do it again, but you'll see the very slight tweak that the photo gets on it. So you just watch the photo, and there you go. So you can see it just gets a little bit of a pop. It's a, whoops, what am I doing? I'm doing my own. I wasn't holding down shift. Good example of what not to do. I'm just going to place it a little bit over there. There you go. So you might like it like that. You may decide actually you don't want to have the soft pop effect on it, in which case it's as easy as anything. You just go to your eye here in your layers palette under it and click it off, and there you go. Without it, with it, without it, with it. So it's entirely optional. You might want to use it sometimes, not use it other times. Now you might decide you like it like that, or you might want to add a little bit more pop, in which case you go to Image Adjustments, Brightness Contrast, and up the contrast and a bit, up the brightness a little bit. And then you can also use your Dodge tool, which lives over here with Dodge tool, Burn tool and Sponge tool. Use your Dodge tool and just lighten up her face in here just to make sure that that stays a focus. So there you go, there's your original, and that's the tweaked. So that's one example. And another one here is my daughter at the beach, and I'm going to use the same one, so I'll just get rid of that and drag it on. There she is. I'm just gonna, my horizon is a little bit wonky, so I'm just gonna use with some arrows up here, I'm just gonna straighten it up a bit. Better, I think. Right, I'm going to clip it, so watch the photo and see what happens. There you go. So you instantly get a slightly over-processed, very bright, very light effect. I shall show you without it, with it, without it, with it. So you may decide you don't like that effect, just turn it off. You may decide you like it, but you want a bit more contrast. So you can just go to your sliders and up your contrast. Now, another thing you may like to do, you might like to try having that photo in sepia. Really quick way to do that. Just go to Image Adjustments, Desaturate, and then you might want to up the contrast even a bit more. Bit of dodge on her face. There you go. Instant sepia photo. So they are actually fun for vintage photos as well. This is a photo of my sister and my mother at the beach in Waikiki. It's actually a slide that my dad took, which has been scanned. And of course, when you scan a slide, you don't get the authentic edge to it. So if you want to get a realistic vintage look and add a bit of depth and realism, this is a really good way to do it. You just drag it on. Whoops, I didn't make sure that was active, so I'll just drag it down. Clip it. Actually, I'll just resize it with my holding down the arrows while I'm holding the shift key, using the arrows while holding the shift key. There you go. A bit more. There we are. So there they are on the beach, and that's without soft pop with soft pop, without soft pop with soft pop. And if you want to desaturate it, you can either go image adjustments to desaturate, or you can go Command U and then just pop down your sliders, and then you'll probably want to try your contrast a bit. There you go. And you can always try with your dodge tool just to bring in some detail. So there you go, you get an instant vintage look for a photo, whether it's an old photo or a new photo. And I'll show you what I've been doing with the tri-frame. Some photos that I took in China, which I put into this tri-frame here, and you can see these are the originals. So it's a very subtle effect. Just get in a bit closer so you can see. Here we are. So if I turn off the colour overlay on the building photo, so watch the photo of this amazing arch from the old building. There you go, that's without it. That's with the soft pop. This one of the bike, without it, with it. And I'm going to drag on this one here into this third photo spot. That's way too big, so I'm just going to drag out here until I find a corner. I may actually need to go here to my little magnifying glass tool. Okay, now I grab the corners, hold down shift, resize it, and get in there. Here you go. And I'll just use my magnifying glass so you can see it a bit easier, see what's happening here. Okay, keep watching the photo of the bike. I'm going to clip it by hovering between the two, holding down Alt or Option, and then click. There you go. So that's without colour overlay, without the effect, with the effect. And if I want to punch it up a little bit, image adjustments, brightness, contrast, and just up that contrast a bit. There you go. So I hope that's given you some ideas about how you can use them to create both sepia and just a little bit of an extra pop, a little bit of a slightly over processed, brighter look on your photos. This is a page they use them on, and so for this photo here I desaturated it and it's got the sepia effect on it, and these are scan slides again. So as you can see, you've scanned the slide, but what you're left with is no sort of realistic edge. So this is a way just to make them look like realistic vintage photos on your page for a real detailed, realistic look. And you can also use them for squares of paper, as I've done here. So I've just simply used the ones which come without the border, clipped some pattern paper to it, merged them all, add a drop shadow, and I've got these fun squares that I can use for a page design. And I just want to very quickly show you how I did my shadows here. So I've just put a drop shadow onto this one, which I did on all of these, but as you can see, these shadows here are slightly warped for a bit of extra realism. So I've got a drop shadow on it, so I'm going to go up here to Layer, Layer Style, Create Layer, and that makes the drop shadow its own layer. So you see, if I turn it off, no drop shadow and a drop shadow. And that means that I can warp it, I can blur it, I can do all sorts of things with it. So I'm actually going to blur it a little bit, because a little bit of a softer look, just a tiny bit of a blur, and then I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and that gives me this sort of grid over it, which I can use to shape it how I want it. So I'm going to pull out this corner here, just a bit, and then push that bit in, and then I'm just going to pull down on here. And I'm going to bring this in a bit, because this would be pushed down a bit, because it's got the flower and it's got the wooden title over it, so that corner would actually be pushed down against that paper a bit. So I'm quite happy with that. There you go. And then this paper here, which I have clipped to one of them, as you can see it's sort of a little bit warped, but the shadow doesn't really add to that. So again, same thing, layer, layer style, create layer. Now I've got this on its own layer. I'm just going to blur it a little bit. I think you don't have to blur it, you may be quite happy with it, but in this case I'm just going to. And then I'm going to go over here to my smudge tool. Smudge tool lives with the blur tool and the sharpen tool. I'm going to get my smudge tool. You can make it bigger or smaller up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because this paper sort of bends over, I'm just going to pull it out a little bit here and a little bit there, just to make it a little bit more realistic. There you go. I'm just going to make that shadow a little bit lighter because it's a little bit dark. There we are. And that's my page. And that's what you can do with my instant soft pop warm photos, which you can find at the Lilypad, www.the-lilypad.com, and just look for Lynn Grieveson Designs, and you can find all sorts of digital supplies there. Thanks very much for looking. I hope that's given you some ideas and some inspiration. Bye.